good afternoon, everyone, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Wimby's first, maiden, what's another word for first? Initial? London conference. And I'm a moderator at the first plenary session. Come on, give it up for me. Give it up for me. Oh, gosh. And I'm part of the planning committee. So I'm your host today, and thank you, everyone. It's so great to see a full hall and to see everyone so charged. The energy is great. Thank you so much, Auntie Fati, for sharing with us. Thank you, everyone who has done something this morning and this afternoon. All right, now we're going to be moving really fast because time is fast spent. And I think I'll borrow this stand while I invite the moderators on. So in this session, the panelists on. Can you tell I'm a little nervous or excited? Which one? I went to bed at 2:30 a.m. and woke up at 5:30 a.m. and I had a 1.5-hour journey here. So I don't know if I'm excited, tired, or just a combination of them all. But I'm here and we'll get to it. All right then. So first I'd like to invite my first panelist, who is Professor Sunel El-Nil. And we call her Professor Susie. Hang on a minute, Prof. 1 minute. Let me just say two things about you. She's a consultant gynecologist specializing in urogynecology and uroneurology at the University College Hospital here in London. And she's also a professor of urogynecology at the University College Hospital and a visiting professor at the University of Ibadan. So she's cross-continent. Please come up, Professor Susie. Thank you so much. Very quickly, I'll also be introducing my second panelist, who is Professor Ronke Akerele. Thank you, please. And she is the Director of Culture and Transformation in the NHS across England. That's a big one. And she's also a non-executive director at Goldsmiths University of London. And she's a co-founder of Oja Group, which is a network of women as well here in the UK. So give it up, please, for Dr. Ronke Akerele. And because we're very conscious of gender bias, we have a couple of men on the panel. And so I'll be happy to introduce our first male panelist, who's John Turner, who'll be joining us here. He's the CEO of Visit Somerset, which is a tourism company. And he's also an industrial fellow at the University of Bath. Most interestingly, and I have to say this bit, and I wrote it down so I won't forget any of the words. He's an expert at delivering new and innovative consumer technology, and he's currently undertaking a leadership in artificial intelligence program at Oxford University Said Business School. Please give it up for Mr. John Turner. And my fourth panelist, I believe, will be joining us online. And that's another he for she. And he's Akinwole Omoboriowo. He's the chairman and CEO, Genesis Energy Group. And why we have him on this panel is he's been spearheading power projects across Africa in, the Democratic Republic of Congo, in all the different parts of Africa. And so he has a story to share with us around power and how that's transforming communities in Africa. Mr. Omoboriowo, we're happy to have you on the panel. Oh, come on, because he's online, let's give it up for him too. Thank you. Thank you very much, my panelists. I will stay here for a few minutes, and then I'll come over there. So I'm going to start with you, Professor Susie. You want to tell us a bit about your journey. We're talking about limitless partnerships, collaborations, networks. Right now, you are a professor, right, working within the NHS, and that's the health sector. How has your journey been? What it is you've picked up, and how have you come to this place? And you're going to have to do this in like 3 minutes.
That's a challenge and a half. So thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure. I think if you're going to speak about any journey, you need to start where you began. So I'm originally from Sudan. And many of the room who know me will know I have a very strong relationship with Nigeria, which started when I was a teenager, because my parents were based in Lagos, and actually went to boarding school in England, but Lagos was our home. I subsequently got married to a Nigerian. I was living in Lagos for a long time, so we were married for 20 years. And unfortunately, he passed on. So, Auntie, I recognize the fact that it's not easy when your husband gets poorly and passes on. But it was that sort of long interlink with not just Nigeria, with other parts of Africa. So the professorship which you've alluded to is a recent thing. And it's based in maternal health. And it's about gynecology and pelvic floor disorders. So all the problems women suffer during their reproductive years and the consequences of it later on in life. But the work that led to the professorship started in Africa. So that's where the collaboration and the extensive network comes from. So it started in Ethiopia. I trained in Zimbabwe, worked in Ethiopia in my house officerships, based myself partly in Nigeria, partly in the UK, and basically developed a huge sort of research network, hence why the visiting professorship in Ibadan and so on. And together we developed multiple things such as training and packages and curriculum development and all sorts of other things. But on top of that, took it further to the US, to Europe, to other parts of the world. But predominantly my focus has always been Africa, so worked very closely with my colleagues there. So this is really an accolade based on a network of over 25 years of hard work within the healthcare sector. And one of my colleagues is here today, and she's sitting over there, Dr. Gloria Segbona. We've worked together for a long time, and one of the things we set up together was the International Society of Obstetric Fistula Surgeons, because we believed implicitly that everybody needed to be empowered. And there was it's about dialogue, home and here and home, but everybody needs to be empowered in their own environment. So that's the sort of journey in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Susie. Thank you so much. So let's hear from Dr. Runke. Thank you so much for being on the panel today. You are also in the NHS, but you're driving cultural transformation. And that's a big word around here. And so how did you get here, and what's the journey been like?
Hello, everyone. Hi. I hope you can hear me. Yes, you can. Hello. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. I guess my journey into where I am started years ago, really. 26 years post-university. My first degree was in Nigeria, and traveled to the US straight away after my first degree. And at that time, my dad wanted me to go and do my first degree was in economics, and wanted to go and do my master's in finance. But on getting there, this was in the 90s, and I was meant to start my master's in September, and somehow I got fascinated by all things IT. And the Y2K was about to start, and so diverted the master's money to go and do an IT short course, of which my dad kept calling Abele course instead of doing a master's degree. So decided to do that for the first 3 months, and then I got my first job with PwC, and they wanted some of their staff to support their clients that thought their computers were not going to switch on in the 2000 Y2K. And so decided to work with them, to work with quite a few of your clients on all things IT. So stayed in the US for about 3 years up until 2000, and relocated to the UK in 2000 when I got married. So that's about 23 years ago. And getting married, came here, luckily got back into the IT straight away. And of course, you keep doing so many courses, of which my dad still kept calling Abele courses. But then I was earning quite a lot of income. And so within months, I realized that I needed to do something more substantial. So decided at that time to then do my master's in IT. So went into IT, and from then up until 2009, where it was in different roles, did my first master's as soon as I came. So by 2001, 22 years ago, worked with various top management consultancy firms, Atos Origin, McKinsey, Deloitte, working with quite a number of their clients and stakeholders on business development, business management, business analysis. But I'm an entrepreneur by soul and spirit. So up until then, up until 2009, while I was doing all that, I started 2 businesses. One was a IT consulting firm, which then engaged with recruitment agency and supplied business analysts and developers to quite a lot of clients. And I had about 12 staff working with me. And then the recession hit in 2010, and that then led to a bit of downfall in that consulting market. I then again started a photographic business. So for some of you that know super snaps, like a Kodak Express, I opened one on the high streets. I've seen 2 of my customers here back in the days. And so I had a photographic processing plant on the high street. And in the days of 35 mil APS and all that, was printing that until Asda showed up down the road. And there was no way I could compete with 2p per print and 50p per print that I was doing back then.
You have one
and
more
then,
moment.
Oh, really? How can you tell me to summarize 28 years of my career? Anyway, so to cut a long story short, shut down that business because digital came into play. Nobody started printing. And then came back into the corporate world. And during that time, I was still in the corporate world. They were just side hustle businesses. So decided to say, you know what? I want to go further in my career. Decided to do an executive MBA with Imperial College Business School. And 9 months into that exec MBA, I became a deputy director in the NHS. That was an interim role for about 6 months, then went into the private sector and worked with Bupa for quite a number of years. And then went to Harvard in 2011 and did my executive education program there. And on return, I got my first director role with BHRUT, for some of you that know, back in Evelyn and Redbridge Hospitals, as the first black person on their board. This was back in 2011. And so since then till now, that's about 12 years on, I've worked with Imperial College Health Partnerships, so their hospitals. I was the executive director of transformation there. I've worked with Hertfordshire Partnership. And so since then, with 4 different organizations, I've been on the board of those executive organizations. And 3 years ago, I then got this national role, working with NHS England, being the England's director for transformation. And that transformation, when we talk about cultural transformation, is about how do we improve the working lives of people. We are the biggest employer in Europe, 1.3 million workforce. So I need to oversee that the 1.3 million workforce, their working experiences, flexible working, looking at things when it comes to pay and reward, how do they have a sense of belonging in the workplace. And as a woman of faith, I think I've been really fortunate to be in this position, overseeing across England and being the only black woman and one other black man on the England's board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That sounded really diverse, and you did a good job of compressing it in 2 minutes. Thank you so much. Mr. Omoboriowo, can I then ask you to tell us a bit of your journey? I know you're very big on power projects in Africa, and we just want to know how did you get there, and what's the experience been like?
Thank you so much. Let me first start by confirming that you can hear me properly in the hall.
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. First, it's a great honor to be here, to be invited. It's a shame that I couldn't be there physically. I did all possible, and I said to Azatu that maybe next time they give me a private jet. For me personally, I think that the topic in question, that's something that is of great interest. I represent Genesis Energy, a gas and power infrastructure developer out of London. We've been on this journey for over 2 decades. We started off with the ambition of adding value to our communities. Without electricity, fundamentally, there cannot be even a modern community, much less a society. So this drove and this drive all of what we do ultimately into one clear vision, which is lighting up Africa one community at a time. I must say that the collaboration between sexes, so men and women alike in Genesis, between races and religion, I think for us it's a blend. It's a way of life. We do not believe that there's any disparity between a man and a woman. We believe that we're all endowed by our Maker to be the best that we can. And we believe that the journey that Genesis has been so far, has put us in about 11 countries and more, has been made possible because of this very, very deep knowledge, this real, true way of life. And so for us, and to me representing that Genesis light, I'm proud to say that over the past 2 decades, we've been able to deliver projects of over $220 million, with powering communities and homes that today could translate to more than 100,000. As an example of some of what we do in Nigeria, which is, for me, charity begins at home, includes the empowerment of putting in place a real efficient, reliable, albeit a bit expensive, energy supply solution in Banana Island. It's the biggest residential mini grid in Nigeria, some of us may know. We also ran the first industrial mini grid in Calabar Free Trade Zone, and today operate the largest commercial license off-grid business in the country. We pivoted from that into solar energy in South Africa. We contracted over 300 megawatts. We're building the first independent power project in Benin Republic, commissioned the first clean gas asset to decarbonize Mali early this year. And I must say that for us, and I'm proud to have some of my colleagues on the call, one present in the room, others listening with us here. We're proud to have our COO, Mrs. Amina Onifade, who perhaps represents the first executive in the company. We have Mrs. Melissa Sekila, who is the Chief Vice President for Development. We have Mrs. Oluwaseun Sorumu on the call. We have a Vice President of Legal Services, Mrs. Umwada Ogajiaji. So we're blessed to have this very powerful, very committed, highly dynamic women on our team and continue to lead us. And so for Genesis, where we are today and where we'd like to be tomorrow, which is the envisioned future. And that's some of what I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk less about Genesis. I'd like to talk more about what our female folk and what the partnership between the sexes in our communities can do together to better deliver this much better society that's really comfortable for everybody to live in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Omabori. And indeed, that's the thrust of our conversation. Power is a very important aspect of life, especially across the continent in Africa. And we know that our communities, when they're powered, those communities are made up of girls and women. You know, women can cook better, they can have water, girls can study better, you know, because there's power and the community does thrive. So we will be very happy to dive into that when we talk about how you're impacting the lives of women and girls. And so, John, I didn't leave you for last, but you are the last one that you're going to talk about a bit.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit. You are CEO of Visit Somerset, and that's a tourism company. And exactly, how did you get there, and what's tourism got to do with women and girls?
Okay, well, it just really give you a bit of background. So I've been the chief executive of Visit Somerset, which is the official destination management organisation for the county of Somerset in the UK, famed for having the foundations of European Christianity, that very, very, very big music festival, which is possibly the biggest in the world, called Glastonbury Festival, which some of you might know about. Thank you. Good. Thank God for that. We're getting some of our marketing right. And you know, also where we have a World Heritage Site called Bath. So it's a beautiful county, and I'm sure you'll all be very warmly welcomed there if you ever fancy a bit of a trip down to the southwest of England. In terms of the visitor economy, it's about the movement of people, and I've been fascinated in terms of how we monitor the movement of people over several years now, and started through my chartership with the Chartered Institute of Marketing to understand artificial intelligence and how AI and machine learning can support our organisation and support the visitor economy, and the possible work that we're going to do with Visit Britain in transforming our industry to adopt AI and machine learning. And obviously I'm here today because I'm also studying for my sins at Oxford University with my colleague Letitia, who's also here today. And I'm supporting Letitia and will continue to commit to support Letitia in her project around AI for Africa, where Letitia and her team are wanting to make sure that 100 million Africans actually receive the training and the education in artificial intelligence. And it's really important that we get a balance in that. And we all heard the word bias and the concerns over artificial intelligence. What we should be more concerned with is the humans behind artificial intelligence. And we need to make sure that there is a balance in the sexes and in the way that artificial intelligence is created, how the data systems are put into place, to make sure we don't have that bias. So, you know, it's incredibly important that we put Africa on the map as your incredible continent is now kind of rising in the economic stakes globally to become, you know, a powerhouse that will rival the European Union, the States, and the powerhouses of Southeast Asia. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time, but it's also a time where you need to embrace artificial intelligence. There are two things in the world that levitate above anything else in importance. One is the climate crisis, of which I'm ashamed to say the West is playing a huge part in. But the second is AI and machine learning and what we call the fourth industrial revolution that we are all going through. And you're all engaged with AI in your everyday lives, but you might not know it. And you've all got mobile phones. I can see you've all got them. They're not actually mobile phones. They are what we call data capture devices. And currently they are there for the convenience of 5 very, very big tech giants that are monitoring your behavior every second of the day. And there are about 10 pieces of machine learning on your mobile phone that are completely independent of any network, that are feeding information up and down to your phone, to these cloud-based organizations. It is a fascinating topic. And it's touching every part of our lives throughout the globe right now. And you guys, female, male, whatever we are in terms of our social backgrounds, we need to be engaging with this technology for a very exciting future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. One of the things John said to me earlier on was AI is both terrifying and exciting. And I think that sums it up, really. And it's something we all have to understand, especially how it affects us in transforming ourselves, helping us in our careers, and helping us even to live better in our society. All right, so diving back into our conversation, I'm now going to be asking, I think I'll start with Dr. Runke, 2 minutes. Dr. Runke, 2 minutes. You talked a lot about your career, and you have, it's quite diverse, quite rich, robust, and it's been cross-continental, international, it's been everywhere. What's the one thing that has helped you? I mean, obviously, outside of your chasing alpha and wanting a better income or wanting to make some more money, what has been, you know, one thread or one pattern that you have noticed through it all? I will say, for one thing, as you said, you were the first black woman who was appointed into the position that you held. And that must have been kind of challenging. And so what was your support? How did you deal with that? And how did you then climb up the ladder thereafter? 2 minutes.
But you asked me 10 questions.
I know.
All right, maybe I'll answer all the 10 questions in 2 minutes. I guess in terms of my career and what has helped, I mean, we've heard a lot already from the phenomenal women that have spoken about women, about gender and all that. I really, really appreciate that. But we're in a different context. Gender is important, but race is also important here. And so we're battling two things. We're battling gender, whereby we have other colleagues at work of other race that we share that in common. But we're also battling race. So for us, in where we're battling race and gender, we have to think out of the box. We have to think in a minority setting, how do I excel? And don't play on the negative about you can't do this because you're black. You can't do this because your name doesn't sound right. I mean, my full name is Aderonke. And I remember when I came here, when I was in the US and when I came here 23 years ago, people would call me Ade. And I would say, no, call me Ronke. That it's a full name, but call me Ronke. Oh, but that seems difficult. And for where I am, I'm glad I didn't change my name just to please somebody else or decide to go from Ronke to Roni. To say I just wanted to be my identity and for you to own that identity. So as I got through the different careers, it's about dedication. It's about self-motivation. I mean, for me right now, I'm so proud of so many other women that are also in senior leadership roles across the country in the UK. When I started, I mean, my first director role was 12 years ago. I didn't know anybody else. I didn't know anybody else. I work in a sector whereby I'm sure every one of you would know a clinician, a black clinician. I've got one next to me. And so I work in a sector whereby 45%, I'm always based in the southeast of England, 45% of our workforce are black. But we've only got 3 people on boards across that 45%. In a country whereby 25% of them, so across England, are people from BAME background. Across the country, we've only got 5 people, 5% rather. And so, whilst we've got clinicians, Uju will tell me, oh, Ronke, you're my boss. Yes, I totally agree with the clinicians. They do some amazing piece of work. But how do we get them to the management table? How do we stop it being them and us, those of us in management? And I think when I did my doctorate, it really opened my eyes to the use of power. How do we use power well? How do we use, rather than using power over people, how do we use power with people? So he's trying to understand the dynamics of power and how it plays in leadership roles. In my role in the University of London, where I'm a board member, I mean, if you've ever worked in the academia, they're very, very hierarchical. And they've got a lot of chip on their shoulders. So you work with all these professors and you're coming to a university whereby you're making decisions on how they run. And people that know University of London and Goldsmiths, they are prestigious university. So you're coming there having that self-motivation that God brought me here for a purpose and for a time. So I think my faith and my network has really helped. And I'll talk about my OJA network as well that's really flourished where I am. Thank you.
I can give you 1 more minute. You want to tell us a bit about OJA?
You didn't ask a question about that. Okay, OJA. How did OJA start? So I'm one of the co-founders of OJA. I came back from Harvard in 2011 on an executive program, and I was so enriched. I had a cohort in Harvard of about maybe 30 other leaders across the country, and I met 3 other Nigerians on the course, but they came from Nigeria. So I and one other person were the only cohort in my group that came from the UK. He works in the banking sector. So I came back and I was like, oh gosh, I wish I could bring all those people with me because we dined, we wined, we were leaders, we spoke the same language, we spoke the same challenges. But I came here and I felt lonely at the top. We all know that song, right? So I felt lonely at the top. And then 2 years later, Tola Oloyede also went to Stanford. She went on an executive education program, and she came back, and she told me that, Ronke, why don't she was also equally inspired when she got back. And she said, we need other people like us that we met there. So Tola invited me, we both decided to invite a friend each. And each one of us invited a friend to start up this thing that didn't have a name. And I'll tell you how we got the name, all thanks to Mrs. Awishika. And so that didn't have a name. And we started this group of 4 ladies coming out to empower each other. Coming out it was only Tola and I that really knew each other. Then I knew the other person I brought. She knew the other person she brought. All four of us never really knew each other as such. So people felt like strangers, but we were open up to ourselves because we knew individually we wanted to empower ourselves. We knew individually we wanted to excel to the top. We knew we had so many friends out there, but there were friends that we couldn't confide in the challenges we're facing, either in our career, in our marriages, in raising children. And so we started this network. 3 years following on, Mrs. A came into our life. And she challenged us about, you ladies are so successful. You can't keep it to yourself. You need to branch out. You need to pay forward. And she said, you couldn't, as successful as you are, it's very rare in the United Kingdom to see ladies like this. Tola is the executive director of HR for Total Energies in the UK. And so we decided, okay, let's branch out. And through that branching out, we decided to call ourselves Oja. For the Yorubas in the room, Oja means a cloth, a wrapper that you used to carry a baby at the back. So you know you can carry a baby. Without the Oja, the baby will be fine. But with the Oja, it holds it tight. So that's the metaphor, that individually we've done something well ourselves. But with the wrapper, once we carry ourselves, our goal is to not make the other person fall down. And we then lift the person up when they're falling down. So that's the metaphor of Oja. And through that, I cannot say the story of Oja without acknowledging Mrs. Awishika. With that mandate, through her, we've grown to be different tribes. So even as co-founder, we started our tribe. We now have 4 other tribes consisting of 16 other women. So those 16 other women, as group assets, I'll say, I've seen 2 of them here already. I've seen, and she's raising up her hand, that's one of the Oja tribes. I've seen one of our Oja associates in the room as well. And in that collective group assets, we now have about 4 people, we now have 8 board appointments with private and public sector organizations in the UK. We've got 2 charity organizations. We've got, amongst those 16, we've got 4 businesses in the UK. We've got financial organizations of which each one of them run or own or collaborate on. And for us, that's a way of giving back. Fantastic. That's a way of empowering others.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think the major takeaway here is no matter where you are on the ladder, you know, you need to collaborate and you need a network of women. You need a network. Let me not make it so specific. You need a network. Every one of us here needs the support. You need someone you can bounce ideas off, someone you can talk to, someone who can challenge you, and someone who can tell you the truth as well, especially when you're veering off. So thank you so much, Dr. Ronke. That's really, really very inspiring. And talking about collaborations, it's great to hear about Oja at the WIMBIS conference. So thank you again. Now, Professor Susie, I heard you talking about Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, Sudan, and so you are Pan-African.
Pan-African. Yeah.
Very much so. And so what have you picked up, you know, in all of this? And
carry on, sorry.
Can I ask a question, please?
Typical surgeon, I interrupt. Carry on.
Okay. I know you're eager to jump into this and share with us. And so, so what have you picked up? And from a cultural perspective as well, you know, we're women from diverse backgrounds. But what's the common thread that you've learned, and how has that helped you as well?
I think the 2 countries that had the most influence on me were Nigeria and Ethiopia. Those are the 2 countries. And the reason was the strength. There's a very strong strength of patriotism, belief, on a total commitment. Doesn't matter where you go, you have to do something and send it back home. So that I learned very strongly. But on top of that, I had a father who was the Deputy Director General of the WHO, and he believed in Africa as a continent when it wasn't believed in. And he, although we're originally from Sudan, he was supposed to have had his job in the Middle East office, and he said, no, I want the Afro office, which is the Africa office, because that's where we're from and that's where we have to deliver. And it was really from Dad, really, who sort of pushed me through. But coming back to what you're saying, Ronke, it was all the path of excellence. It wasn't good enough to just be a doctor. It wasn't good enough to just do a job. I had to get my PhD from Cambridge. I had to do, if I was going to be a scientist, I was going to be the best scientist. And I'll give you some facts about professorships, because I think it is important. It comes back to the firsts. In the UK, there are 22,500 professors. 8% of them are Asian. 0.7% of them are black. And out of that 0.7%, women are less than 30%. So I'm in a very tiny little group. And at University College London, UCL, your alma mater, at UCL, I'm the first black female professor in a medical specialty.
And so I hope as you clap, you understand that the price for these firsts has been fierce, you know. And so please, another round of applause to our first women. They have paid the price, and it wouldn't have come cheap or easy. So thank you so much, Professor Susie. Just because you shared some statistics, and a long time ago I learned that, you know, when you spit out numbers at a conference, you always look really smart and intelligent. Am I right? And when you say, you know, there are 47% women in my organization and 48%, everyone sits up and begins to listen. And we were talking about that earlier on, John, when we talked about women engineers, and the fact that AI, or much of the data programming, is done by middle-aged or young white men. Emphasis on the men, and so the programming is more suited to men, and there's no female input. So what's your take on that, John?
Well, we were, Letitia and myself and the rest of the Oxford team were with a senior Google executive last night discussing this point. There are 30 million data scientists globally currently. By 2030, we need 300 million. So I'll give you a story. When Jeff Bezos was really kind of taking Amazon to the next level, his team created an algorithm to recruit more data scientists and data engineers. Interestingly, the algorithm was designed and built by white, male, middle-aged men. So therefore, when the applications came in, 99.9% of those applications were from white, middle-aged men. And this is where the whole process of bias comes in. So, you know, we need, as an industry, to make sure that we have a balance throughout the industry, reflecting all nationalities, all ethnic origins, and so forth, so that we make sure that the artificial intelligence that will dominate our lives and humanity moving forwards is as balanced and as reflective and as socially inclusive as we are all striving for right now. And that's absolutely critical moving forward.
Thank you very much, John. And you may be wondering, why are we talking about artificial intelligence? I thought we were talking about borderless networks and collaborations. But then, as John pointed out, AI affects every part of your life, even your mobile phone. And so you better sit up and listen now, because we're going to be sharing some more information. All right, Mr. Omoboriowo, if I can come to you now. You wanted to tell us a bit about how your power projects are affecting communities in Africa and how women and girls benefit as well from that, and what your future outlook is like around building power projects in Africa.
Thank you very much, moderator. It's been great to listen to Dr. Ronke and Susie, and of course the very important learning from John around AI and how it impacts our lives. I think in Genesis, the notion of powering communities, particularly the rural communities. As we all know, the majority of Africans are in the suburbs. We have a few in the cities, but a lot more in the rural communities. And we have two problems on the continent when it comes to energy. We have the availability problem, all the cities that are empowered with access to electricity. And then we have the access problem. For the majority of Africans, who frankly do not have any form of access whatsoever to electricity. So for those with access problem, solar becomes very important. And solar, frankly, has a way of creating immediate impact because you can deliver end-to-end directly to where it's needed for the communities, for the customers. And there are ancillary businesses where you have women able to take ownership of this solution that you provide. They're able to leverage on it to improve their mainly small-scale businesses. Actually, I want to say micro-scale businesses. And you'll be shocked how much impact it makes on someone being able to stop cooking with firewood and instead for laborers in their community, being able to have access to stove that are lit by electricity, by solar. And so for us, the dynamism around the ultimate consumer of that electricity and across the value chain of those who are delivering that solution is why today in Genesis, our Chief Vice President, who is in charge of how we grow across the continent, and someone in a very remarkable short period of time has been able to acquire contracted investments of over $300 million, Mrs. Melissa Sekila. It's something that we didn't do for the sake of appearing to be pro-gender equal. It's the fact that we identify talent, we identify those who are committed to our vision, whether they're the men or the women, for us it doesn't matter. And so, the essence of business, I must say, is value creation. Value itself is colorblind. It's gender blind. It's religion blind. It doesn't have any color. It doesn't care whether you're white or black. And so, to that extent, for us, value creation is our focus. We like to create value on the continent. We are creating value on the continent. It's a very serious job. I don't think that the notion of powering Africa, empowering communities is for the get rich quick. You're never going to get rich quick. And please don't dream of the notion here is you must love people. You must really, when I say love people, who can't belong to this egoistic class or man, royal family, and all this nonsense. It's all geared towards looking for the best. And in Genesis, we have the best men, we have the best women, we have the best boys, we have the best girls, and we're going to train them to deliver far better than at my level. Soon, I hope to retire, and hopefully, I will chair. But you know what? We just want to make sure that the women that we serve, the men that we serve, live that much better life, and they can pay it forward. And this is very important. And I tell people that changes don't come overnight. So to speak to some of the topics of this conference, please allow me, Madam Moderator, is and I say it's turning challenges into wins. You must. There's an acronym that describes fail as first attempt in learnings. Emphasis on the S, in learnings. You can't succeed without failure. Anyone that teaches you that failure is a problem, get rid of that. You need to be able to fail for you to be able to understand how to approach your ambition, to be able to approach how to be a better friend, how to be a better collaborator. It is by disappointing and being disappointed that you understand what it feels, the pain of disappointment feels like. So for us, we feel very fast. We adapt and we represent. And today, from a very difficult background, difficult beginning 2 decades ago, trying to light up Giving the South in 2006, a country that didn't have any form of structured power. So where we are, that was 10 megawatts less than 20 years ago. And today, to scale that more than 20 times, I think it's something that we have to, frankly, give thanks to our men and women. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And so value creation is color, gender, and bias blind, let me use that word. And when you pursue the value creation, then you rise above all of these challenges. I think I've quite enjoyed listening to the different perspectives. We've gone around Africa, and we've heard of how power is changing, transforming communities. We've talked about artificial intelligence and the fact that not only do we have to change the composition of the engineers so there's a bit more intuitive and female-oriented input into programming, we've also learned from our two firsts, our two professors, working with the NHS in academia and in health, especially learning how lonely it can be at the top, and how when you're first, you have to reach out and build those networks that will help you to succeed. And so, do I have time for questions? Or I've used up all my time? 2 questions, you're so generous, thank you very much. But before, oh wow, that's the first hand up. But before we ask questions, okay. All right, we'll add that on as well if there are questions online. Can I say 60 seconds, just a few final words before we then do questions? 60 seconds, and I will shout when it's 60 seconds. So let's just go across.
60 seconds, okay. So perseverance, resilience, look to anybody and everybody is out there to help you. Go for it. Don't, and definitely don't listen to anyone who says to you, can't do it. You can. And there's everybody out there that can help you.
Thank you so much.
I think for me is dedication. You need to be dedicated. Focus on your focus, really. You need to just know what you want and be determined to achieve it. Have that drive to want to go there. I mean, the world will tell you that you can't, but we did. And we didn't have anybody up there to tell us we couldn't. So it's important that you also create your networks. So that's why for the younger ones or for my children, I'm glad where we are, because when we got there, we didn't have people of color we could go to. So we had to always go back home to Nigeria to tap onto the aunties to hear from them. So for all of us here is just continue going forward, and we're all here to support each other for the best.
Seconds. Okay, thank you, Dr. Nike. And John?
Steve Jobs. Do we all know Steve Jobs? Yeah. Well, he said something really powerful once that really resonated with me, and has all my life. And although I'm white, middle-aged man, I've had my fair share of ups and downs, as I'm sure my wife will reflect. But the only barriers to having a successful future are the ones you put in your mind.
Yeah. Correct.
It doesn't matter who you are. There are opportunities out there. And do talk to myself and Letitia if you want to know more about AI in Africa and how we can support you on your journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And Mr. Omoborio, final words from you.
There are 2 quotes. One is I got from a movie, and it says that in Africa, the sun is like a furnace. It either melts you or forges you. Yeah. So it's a difficult continent. There's a lot of opportunity, but it's a tough place to do business. But I tell you, resilience is critical. Yeah. And Dr. Rooney, Bronquest mentioned something around. The second quote is from Big Madiba, the late Madiba Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
It always seems impossible until it's done.
Yeah.
So create your own market. Find your collaborators. Be very clear around the vision. And don't just run. You have to keep judging yourself and assessing yourself. And I tell you, success ultimately always comes out of failure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Oh my God, I can see the red flag. Okay, over now. Any questions?
You've got 2.
That was the first hand up. Just 2 questions. Just 2. First hand up in the middle. In the middle. In the middle.
No.
In the middle. Thank you. Do we have any questions online?
Yeah, there's so many hands up now. No, great.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Lara Stanley, and I just want to say it's such a privilege to be among so many distinguished people in this room. Thank you for your wisdom, and So I just want to ask a question around partnership. Lara, my namesake, earlier on was talking about the different partnerships that she's had, the ones that have succeeded and some that haven't succeeded. And I also acknowledge the fact that there are many women of different, at different stages of their career in this room. How do you go about establishing successful partnerships, especially when all you have is perhaps a dream, an idea, particularly when you are pivoting out of your career? So I work in investment banking as a risk manager, but I think I'm a storyteller and I have all these different ideas about filmmaking and telling stories. So if you want to pivot, how do you establish and form mutually beneficial partnerships without feeling like you are a burden, especially when all that person has, they have all the resources, all the money? How do you negotiate the terms? Just practical steps, because I think, sometimes it can be much above your head sometimes, and it'll be really helpful to get some ideas from you guys.
All right, thank you. We will take the second question and then we'll answer that. Where was the second question? There was a hand here. I'm sorry. Binta, can I do one question? Let's listen to the middle-aged white man. After her, sir. After her, sir. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
My question is for John. You talk about AI. What are you guys considering AI with regards to diagnosis in health? Because you have a lot of chronic diseases. So what is the role of AI in diagnosing, following up with those kind of situations, especially in Africa?
And for women. Thank you very much. All right, then, our he for she.
All right, the question is for the panel, but it's addressed to all the women in here. And the reason I'm asking this question is because I'm proud of my wife. She's very intelligent, way smarter than me. My question is there a way that this group, starting probably through Hansi, I'm guessing, but that y'all could pool some money together and start bringing more kids into environments that can make your future take off? Because, and irregardless of the political situation going on now, once Africa starts taking off, and Nigeria has to lead the way. They have to, because there are so many black people in Nigeria, y'all lead the way there. You have to lead the way. But is there a way that y'all can start now and start developing the path to take Nigeria up and then Africa?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And so I will ask my panelists. John, do you want to go first with the response to this?
Yeah.
1 minute.
Again, with the senior exec at Google last night, we were talking about this exact thing and how AI is actually helping to support diabetics and blindness in diabetics, which apparently is increasing radically. And AI is now supporting doctors in the identification of the patterns in the eye. And there's similar kind of results are being found in breast cancer now, and identifying patterns, because that's what AI actually is. It's just a pattern recognition identifier. So using image recognition, we can start to really formulate plans with doctors and AI to maximize and support these really crucial areas of medicine. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, John. So Professor Susie and Dr. Ronke, both of you can spend 60 seconds each to, addressing her question. What can you do to collaborate and to build partnerships?
So, I'll get Ronke to answer first and I'll follow through. Please, go ahead.
I think for me, it's go where the energy is. If your passion is into the storytelling, filmmaking, inquire on networks, societies that are into that. You'd be amazed that there's so many other people that's their passion, but that's not their money-generating income, and they're looking for where to break. So forming those networks in that sector is really vital, and there's so many networks and voluntary organizations that will take you in. The other thing is, when you talk about collaboration, I mean, like I said, with my day job in the NHS, I don't have a choice but to collaborate. But the challenge is, because I work across England, being the biggest employer, I can only collaborate globally. I need to go to Spain to find out what they're doing with regards to managing operations, how do they make it more effective, productive for the workforce. I need to find out from Canada, come back to Africa to know what's happening in the developing world. So by default, I need to reach out in that aspect. But I think with other women, and it doesn't have to be women, it could be men as well, whereby you form partnerships where you think there's energy, because iron sharpeneth iron. You might think you don't have something to give, but you'd be amazed that what somebody else is looking for is what you have to give.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it's a wrap, unfortunately. Professor Susie, did you have something to say?
No, I think Ronke said it all.
And it's a wrap. So thank you so much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Omoborio. Thank you, Dr. Ronke. And thank you, Professor Susie.
Thank you so very much, ladies and the gentlemen.